Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlip. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_data. Well, lots of news and notes to get through, and no, not in regard to the Packers. We're going to talk about the Packers from a sort of roundabout kind of way, because the Packers have done nothing as far as the news is concerned, aside from re-signing Brooks, which we'll talk about briefly. I just got done doing Packernet After Dark, and the concern, I think it was Chris from Alabama, I don't remember. The concern was, what if they just don't do anything? They have to. And it seems like they're going to wait until the last minute, and I don't know what that means. I'm starting to get closer and closer to Rashawn and Romeo stay, but I don't know. I don't know what's all possible here, because money is a reality. And it's going to be tough. But we shall see. I don't know. Obviously, the reason for the delay is that they're working. They're working on probably trying to trade people. They're working on possibly negotiating with Rashawn, negotiating with Romeo, trying to see what they can do as far as possibly pay cuts or restructures or, contracts, depending on the exact situation with those people, to see what we can do. And we'll see. We'll see what that ends up being. I mean, obviously, the Packers at this point don't even know, because they don't know how all these things are going to fall and who's going to agree to this, that, or the other. But we are running out of time, and it's the Packers that are kind of over a barrel. Guys like Romeo, if they hit free agency, it just works to their benefit. It just means more. The Packers, I'm sure, would love to lock things down so that we don't get to that point. Players would probably prefer, unless an offer comes along that they can't refuse, they'd like to see what's out there in free agency. Now, that can backfire if you're getting a pretty good deal and you go out into free agency and suddenly, this team picks up Stephon Diggs, and then this guy picks up this, and these team, and suddenly your price starts to go down. And if you end up coming back to your original team with your tail between your legs and your, little tin can holding out asking for money, you're probably not going to get as much. Or in the case of, Josh Jacobs and Aaron Jones, once Jacobs became available, the Packers pivoted quickly, and they said, let's go see if we can get Jacobs. And once they did, they said, sorry, Aaron, goodbye. So it can be a dangerous thing for the player to wait, but generally speaking, it's going to work to your advantage unless you, again, get a deal that you think is as good or better than you're going to get on the free agent market. And why would a team offer that? Unless they really want to lock you down. But I mean, if you're trying to get a deal, this is not a time to get deals, I guess, is kind of the point, because players are not feeling very generous or charitable at this point. So let's start. And again, just like yesterday, I'm skipping 60% of the news. This is just things that are of general interest, or larger stories, or things that could potentially pertain to the Packers, like this guy got released. Maybe. So let's start ripping through some of this stuff. So in the general interest, big news side of things, the Rams have acquired cornerback Trent McDuffie from the Chiefs in exchange for a 2026 first, fifth, and sixth round draft picks. I really get the feeling stuff is going to be expensive, man. Some of the prices getting thrown around. McDuffie's a good corner, and he is young too. I didn't realize. I mean, he's spent 4 years in Kansas City. He's only 25. So that is pretty young, I guess. But that's a heck of a freaking price tag, man. First, fifth, and sixth round draft picks. Well, and Well, the Rams had 2 picks, right? So this would probably be their second pick, meaning the Chiefs will end up with 2 first-round picks this year, giving them some ammunition to move up if they so chose to. Although you probably want to use a pick on a corner at this point. This is just kind of hitting me right now as I'm thinking through some stuff. But big news of the day for sure. And these are the kinds of deals that all the teams are trying to work out, whether they're trying to acquire or trying to trade away or whatever the case may be. This is what people are working on. And kudos to the Chiefs for securing the frickin' bag on this one. And obviously, this is from the Rams' standpoint. This is an all-in move. Now, it's a smart all-in move because again, he's 25, so it's an all-in move / he's going to be our guy for the next 5 years, 5, 6, 7 years, whatever. Hopefully, but we're really getting down to the wire with our quarterback. Every year is kind of a will he, won't he return kind of a situation. Again, Devontae is probably not going to be around forever. We've already got some offensive linemen that are getting up in age, and I think, was it Havenstein just retired, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, something to that effect. So, we're really trying to get this thing one more time if we can while we still have Matthew Stafford. So this is kind of an all-in deal. It's a homecoming for McDuffie, who's from Southern California. It's also a good fit because the Rams' new defensive backs coach is Jimmy Lake. Lake was one of the guys that recruited McDuffie to the University of Washington and actually coached him in his rookie year. So a lot of familiarity there. Just a very, very good fit. There's also the assumption, because he is in his final year of his deal, he got the 5th-year option, $13 million, I think is all that's going to cost. The assumption is this trade was contingent on an extension that's coming from the Rams. And so the assumption is at some point we're going to hear about a massive extension on the back of this, probably in excess of $30 million a year for McDuffie. The other positive, and I'm certainly not a Rams fan in their NFC and all that, but I have been a bit of a Chiefs hater ever since they've had the continued success that they've had, and them losing McDuffie makes me smile. Yes, they have potential value there with a first-round pick, but I don't have a lot of faith that they're going to find another McDuffie with that pick. Anywho, in other hilarious news, Kyler Murray apparently is exploring a return to baseball. It's funny because my immediate thought is, yeah, dude. Yeah, I think maybe the NFL thing was a bad decision. Baseball maybe was the right decision, and you should have gone that way. The Oakland Athletics currently hold his rights still, so that if he did go back to baseball, I believe he would have to go to that team. They selected him 9th overall in the 2018 MLB draft. That was a big deal at the time, back at that draft, him deciding where he's going to go. And for a while there, it sounded like he was really leaning baseball, which was kind of disappointing. Of course, you want him to come to the NFL, which he did. If he does go back to baseball, which he could do if he wanted to for a year, essentially the Cardinals would be paying him like $36 million to play baseball. And just see how it goes. Take maybe a gap year. If it works out, great. Maybe you get that MLB bank. If not, you come crawling back to the NFL, see what kind of scraps people are willing to throw at you. I'm guessing that won't happen, but I don't know why not, man. He always liked baseball. He's very good at baseball. The NFL is not working out. You're looking at possibly being a backup for the rest of your life. There's a lot of money in baseball and a lot less wear and tear on your body, He's a smaller guy, and the concern is always getting beat up and your body deteriorating in the NFL, getting just pummeled by 320-pound men. That said, apparently the Vikings and Jets, as I said, the two teams at the forefront of every bit of news, they are at the forefront of this. And we've had nothing but success against him. I would absolutely be in favor of him going to Minnesota. I understand he can be scary and lethal, and maybe with the combination of, I just don't think it's going to work, and I don't care. And if that's what the Vikings are going to do, that's their big plan. Great, go for it. I don't care. I also think, I don't know. I don't know how much of a long-term investment it would be, but I can't imagine them making any kind of a long-term investment before you go out and get a GM with the expectation that we're going to hire a GM and saddle him with this quarterback decision we made when we were GM-less. Max Crosby looks like there's been a lot of will he, won't he. Looks like that's coming to an end. Max Crosby has, thank you, apparently, quote-unquote, exhausted all efforts with the Raiders. So looks like he's going to be leaving, which is always exciting for the offseason drama, but it's unfortunate because the Bears are one of the teams at the top of the list to acquire him. So we'll have to see. The good thing about it is that presumably the price is going to be way above his value. Not to say Max Crosby can't have some kind of a resurgence. He's obviously a good football player, but you're going to be paying Max Crosby like it's 2023, and he is not 2023 Max Crosby anymore. He had 3 years of dominating the NFL. His PFF grades from 21 to 23 were 92, 90, and 92. The last 2 years have been 74, 79. His pass rush grades were 92, 83, 84, 70, and 77. So 90, then 2 years in the 80s, and then 2 years in the 70s. 2024, when that downswing started happening, he dealt with an injury. So he's going to be 29 years old, a smaller pass rusher, 250 to 260 pound pass rusher who's had injuries, who's getting up in age, and who has not been that elite productive guy in a few years now. Looking at PFF sacks, if you look at 22 and 23, he had 30. 24 and 25, he had 18. So we'll see what the cost is. The Raiders want to get a Micah Parsons package, and I hope they do because they're going to bleed somebody dry. I don't want to say I hope the Bears get him because, it's not going to be a super long-term. It's going to hurt them more in the long term, but the short term is still going to suck. I mean, we still have to play in 2026 and 2027, and this is going to be a hindrance to us winning. But overall, it's depending on the cost. I think he's going to get, or I should say the Raiders are going to get massively overpaid, possibly Max Crosby as well. I don't know. Getting into some of the guys that have been released, we'll start off with Stephon Diggs. I'll start with that for two reasons. Number one, we're unlikely to get a wide receiver. Number two, if we were on the wide receiver market, Stephon Diggs would not necessarily be on it. But it's out there just for, I'm sure there are going to be a handful of Packer fans saying, we got to do it, because that's just what Packer fans do. But there's just no way. Stephon Diggs, by the way, 32 years old, still playing at a pretty high level. 1,123 yards this past year, just 5 touchdowns. He only had 3 years of double-digit touchdowns, 20 to 22. But he has been a good receiver. His lowest graded season ever was a 77.6 when he was with Minnesota in 2019. In fact, 3 of his 5 worst years are in Minnesota as far as his receiving grade goes. But we'll see what happens with Stephon Diggs. We'll see what his market is out there. After that, we got Bobby Okereke. Ari Mirov says, breaking, the Giants have released linebacker and captain Bobby Okereke per Schultz report. He started 46 games, 3 years with the Giants, recorded 385 tackles, 5.5 sacks, 4 interceptions. It's worth noting because we may be in the linebacker market, depending what happens with Quay Walker. I will say, though, if they're kind of on the same tier as far as if they're both looking to get $15 million or whatever the case may be, what the heck is the point of going out and getting him? It's also worth noting he is going to be 30 years old this year and is coming off an awful year. He had a 56 grade, 45 run defense grade, 50 tackling grade, 65 coverage grade. And even that coverage grade is somewhat deceiving because he had 3 games of 70 or higher and plenty of games of sub 60. 59 against Chicago, 58 against Dallas, 58 against Philly, 54 against Philly, 52 against Green Bay, 52 against New Orleans, 52 against Washington, 49 against New England, 49 against the Chargers. And that was his best asset, was coverage. So I don't really have any interest in 30-year-old Bobby. who is prone to having really bad years. It seems like he gets injured every other year. He has bad years once every other year. He's had like 3 good years, 3 bad years, and a mediocre year when he was injured. He'll be on his 3rd team in 4 years at Indy. They let him go. Giants had him for 3 years, and after a bad year, they're going to let him go. I don't see the reason. I mean, if we're going to pay a bunch of money, just pay Quay. I'd rather have Quay than him anyways. But it's important to know because I don't know. That's my thoughts. That has nothing to do necessarily with what the Packers are thinking. All right, tell you what, let's take a break. We'll come back. We got more guys being released that we should probably keep an eye on, and we'll go from there. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. Chargers have released tight end Will Dissly. We've talked before about how we will probably be on the tight end market, I would assume. I think the Packers have a tight end and are probably looking for another. Dissly's another guy that's 30 years old, coming off an injured season, blah, blah, blah. With that said, he is a 6'4", 265-pound guy that is a blocker. Whatever that's worth to the Packers, it is worth noting that. He's always been a pretty solid blocker. 60s to 70s as a run blocker, 70s to 80s as a pass blocker, as much as pass blocking is not really a thing that tight ends do. He is good at it. So I would assume they're looking more for a, speed type of guy, but if there's something to be said about going out and adding to this run game that we're trying to improve upon, and getting a guy that can come in and handle some of that dirty work and maybe take a little bit off of Kraft's plate or whatever the case may be, maybe. But again, 30, injured, doesn't really scream Packers would be interested. Which brings us to the other side of this, which is Jonnu Smith. He's also 30, going on 31, but he is more of a receiving type of guy. He is the 6'3", 248 receiving tight end. He's had, as early as 2024 in Miami, 886 yards and 8 touchdowns, 83 receiving grade. So he would have been, 28, I guess, that year. The downside here is, and it could just be a scheme thing, but in Pittsburgh, he had a 49 receiving grade, 221 yards, and 2 touchdowns. In fact, if you look at his, I had to double check to make sure I was even in the same spot, his receiving statistics, I thought it was like rushing yards or something. In his final game in the playoffs, he had 2 receptions for -1 yard. Week 18, 1 reception for 2 yards. I mean, his yardage is -1, 2, 18, 0, 12, 0, 6, 21, 0, 4. Like, what even, these look like quarterback rushing yards for, like, Peyton Manning. However, if we're going to be charitable to him, very crowded tight end room in Pittsburgh. Pat Freiermuth was Rodgers' top guy. Darnell Washington, obviously a Rodgers type, the 6'7" monster. And then you had Connor Hayward as your kind of H-back type of a guy. Apparently he and Aaron Rodgers never really got on the same page, so it just never really worked. You got 3 tight ends in front of you. You got a run-first philosophy in Pittsburgh. And so the bottom line is he never really got an opportunity. So you have to balance that a little bit. You can easily look at it and go, look at what they did in 2024 in Miami. And remember, that's a Shanahan kind of a system that they had there. So there's going to be some overlap there with what Matt LaFleur would want to do with him. That was, however, 2 years ago, which doesn't sound like a long time, but when you're 30 pushing 31, it matters. It also should be noted that this will be, 2022 he played for New England, 2023 Atlanta, 2024 Miami, 2025 Pittsburgh. Meaning this will be his 5th team in 5 years, but unless he goes back to one of those teams. But it is a extreme long shot. It also absolutely does not feel like something the Packers would want to do. But I would, table it. Moving on to the offensive line side of things, the thing that was expected to happen did happen. Mekhi Becton was released by the Chargers. This one is semi-interesting. So Mekhi Becton, if you remember, was the number 11 overall selection in 2020. So this was a very highly thought of offensive lineman, big, massive guy, listed at 6'7", 363 pounds. Big, big dude. He initially played tackle. He went to Philly and they kicked him inside, and that was generally seen as a success. That was when Saquon Barkley absolutely dominated. He had a 70 run blocking grade, although he's always been kind of a good run blocker. And so, that was kind of seen as like a successful thing. Well, the Chargers bring him in. They're like, okay, let's continue that. Let's continue doing that. 37 grade, 35 run blocking, 47 pass blocking. By far his worst year ever. Doing exactly what he did in Philly as a right guard. Apparently, he's got some Eddie Lacy issues going on. The weight is a very serious problem. I guess his weight was getting out of control for the Jets. In Philadelphia, it was thought to have been getting a little bit under control. He was slimming down and everything was looking good. And then when he went to the Chargers, things got rapidly out of control again. And the mobility went away and all that stuff. And it was just a complete and total freaking disaster. I would not put it past the Packers to give him a shot at a very low price for a couple reasons. Number one, 26 years old. Number two, they've already taken swings on these sort of early first-round pick, high upside guys. Can we fix him? Can we make this a thing? Beyond that, big, giant... this guy would make Anthony Belton look like frickin' Zach Tom. Bringing in Mekhi Becton for basically no money and just bringing him into camp just to see what happens. He might not make the 53, but if it's a low enough amount of money, which it probably would be, I could see Brian Gutekunst bringing him in and letting him compete on the interior. He has the flexibility. He's played tackle. He's played guard. I think it makes a ton of sense for all the reasons in terms of when I look at what the Packers seem to be looking for, I think it checks all the boxes. Would I want Mekhi Becton? No. I'd like us to get back to more, slim athletic guys that can get out in space and do all those kinds of things, as opposed to this thing that we're doing now where we're trying to get bigger and push people around. But if that's what we're going to do, if that's our thing, let's bring him in, see what he can do. I don't expect him to succeed. I don't think the Packers would expect him to succeed, but you should bring him in and find out. And who knows, if he's cheap enough, I wouldn't mind him as a backup. Now, I would say that's entirely dependent on the fact that we are going to try to stick with this direction and we're looking for some more power gap scheme type of running as opposed to this outside zone type of thing, because I don't think Mekhi Becton's going to pull and get out in space anytime soon. And then for the offensive line is Jawan Taylor. Kansas City Chiefs have told Jawan Taylor that he will be let go. Second round selection, pick 35 in 2019. Jawan Taylor initially was with Jacksonville for 4 years and then went to Kansas City, has been a right tackle the entire time. Jawan Taylor is a terrible run blocker, but a pretty solid pass blocker. How does that fit us? Doesn't really. I would assume he's going to command some money, and I don't think the Packers would give that up, and they would only be interested if they thought he could maybe play left tackle. That, or we bring him in to compete for the right tackle spot and we explore the idea of moving Zach Tom inside or whatever. You know how the Packers love to have their options open and say, well, maybe if we swing him around this, that, or the other, rather than just saying this is our right tackle, and it doesn't change unless some kind of freaking catastrophic thing happens. We will never move them. The Packers like to do that kind of nonsense. Again, I don't really see that happening because I think you're going to pay a decent chunk of change for this guy. And I'm all for bringing in competition. I don't think this is a bring in for competition type of a thing. He's 28 years old. He'll have a little bit of time left. It doesn't seem like he's really declining. He's kind of been the same guy for quite a while now. I mean, he was at his best his final 2 years in Jacksonville, but that was just 2 years out of a 7-year career. Now, so just see this coming across the wire. Another one that really doesn't super matter, but Rashid Shaheed Apparently, an extension is probably not getting done with the Seattle Seahawks, so he'll be moving on. He spent 3.5 years in New Orleans before going to Seattle, getting himself a ring real quick. I don't, 6 foot 180, going to be 28. He's an okay receiver. I mean, what would we want from him? He's also probably going to command a bunch of money. They just won a Super Bowl. A lot of needy teams out there. We are not one of the needy wide receiver teams. I see no reason to even entertain this. All right, let's take our final break. We're done with the these guys got cut, let's consider it game. We got some other news on the other side. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. All right, so Aaron Rodgers was on the Pat McAfee show, which is great. Great to have him back on there to be able to hear what he had to say. Unfortunately, there was no clarity on whether or not he'd be returning, which kind of is to be expected, I suppose. I will say some of the criticisms, I mean, I'm all for like joking around, Rodgers, haha, whatever. But some of these criticisms are so close to being like absurd conspiracy theories. One of the things I can't stand is this, like, he's so obsessed with attention. I'll be honest, I think he is the opposite of that. The guy has been gone forever. He goes into hiding. I don't know where he is. I don't know where he's been. He apparently is married. Nobody knows who she is. I saw there were some podcasters apparently that like figured out, and this is what I'm talking about. They figured out who she was, but they refused to release it. Not because it would be like an immoral thing to do, to be like, no. They think that it would be perfectly fine and within their rights or whatever to do so. But their entire theory was Rodgers is trying to get us to figure it out. He's leaving these little breadcrumbs. And by the way, the breadcrumbs are, he said what her name is. And then I guess there was some other thing where he mentioned sister-in-law and like this person's name, as though that should be enough information for someone to go psycho and go like figure out who it was, which these people did. But their whole thing was like, he wants us to find out so that we can spread the news out there, and then they could say, look at the horrible media, and I'm not going to let him do that. First of all, he's not doing that. You're an idiot. Second of all, if you did release her name when they asked you not to, he would be right to call you a douchebag because you would be a douchebag. This isn't some frickin' conspiracy where Rodgers is trying to get you to figure it out so that he can call. You're such an idiot. You're so stupid. And then I see he goes on Pat McAfee because Pat is a friend and asked him to come on. And they ask him the obvious question, are you coming back? And he says, I don't know yet. And what do I see all over social media? Oh, he just loves the attention. He loves the attention. What are you talking about? How does that mean he wants attention? What does that even mean? Would he not get attention if he said that he was coming back? What is it about saying, I don't know, means what are you even talking about? Everyone has these little triggers with Aaron Rodgers all the time. And they just fire off the trigger as soon as they hear something. Rodgers is going to be on the Pat McAfee. Oh, you want attention. Okay, we have a pass rusher right now that we spent a lot of money on and 2 first-round picks. He has his own podcast. Do you want to do that with him? Oh, you just want attention? You want attention, little baby boy? You want attention? You just want attention? Do you do that with Rashawn Gary when he posts, like, his workouts? Oh, look who wants attention. Little boy wants praise. Ooh, is your ego hurt that bad? You need attention? You just want attention? Why are you doing that with him? I don't understand. The guy goes in hiding for an entire year. He pops his head up for air for 5 seconds because a friend's asked him to. And it's like, oh, look who's back, Mr. Attention. Mr. Attention. What are you talking about? You're so freaking weird. But he went on. He immediately shot that down. If you're here to figure out if I'm making a decision, just you can go now. I'm not giving you my decision. Talked about McCarthy. Said he's an exceptional human being with a big heart. Yinzer, who bleeds Pittsburgh. Compared their relationship to a big brother dynamic, admitting they've been pissed at each other in the past, but emphasizing they only love and appreciate each other now. He said the Steelers organization was a blessing and a refuge after the tumultuous time with the Jets. Man, the Jets are just... Oh, just catching strays 24/7. Yeah, it's a nice break from that frickin' disaster of an organization. Hilariously, although he did not say that he was coming back, he did apparently tell GM Omar Khan, who is the GM of the Pittsburgh Steelers, that they shouldn't be drafting a project rookie quarterback in the first round, and that with the veteran core that they have, the team should be focused on win now. Hard to do if you don't have a quarterback, Rodgers, just to be clear. It's funny that he's like getting all pissy about it, where, obviously he doesn't think teams should be focusing on investing in their future. They should be win now with their current quarterback. Don't draft replacement quarterbacks. I get it. You don't want that. No quarterback wants that. I understand. But it's weird to say that to a GM that doesn't currently have a quarterback because you won't commit to them. It's kind of like when somebody like wants to be with you, wants to be in a relationship with you, and you're kind of stringing them along, and you're like, yeah, I don't really know if I'm ready to commit. But then you start like telling them they shouldn't be dating other people. Bro, if you want to commit, just commit. Otherwise, leave her alone and let her find somebody else. You know what I mean? Anywho, as far as NFC North news, Vikings are expected to release defensive tackle Jonathan Allen. And as a matter of fact, I think they've actually done that now. To be clear, that puts them with Jalen Redmond, Levi Drake Rodriguez, and Tyrion Ingram Dawkins on the interior of their defensive line. And then 31-year-old Andrew Van Ginkel and Jonathan Grenard, who apparently they're looking to potentially trade away as their edge rushers to finish out their defensive line. Their linebacking group is Blake Cashman and like 32-year-old Eric Wilson, who, by the way, is an unrestricted free agent. I mean, this is freaking rough, and they still have a bunch of money to try to figure out how to free up. And to make matters worse, although it does free up money, that's going to cost them $17.3 million in dead money. They're going to spend $17 million on a washed-up old defensive tackle that is not even on their team anymore, so that they can get $6.5 million in cap space. I mean, Kwesi's supposedly a numbers guy, and I don't know what numbers we're talking about here, but he did a freaking number. Last year they brought in Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave, both of whom are gone now. And I made fun of it at the time, and it was all this great pairing. It's going to be a most feared duo, and it was stupid then, and it's stupid now. They have to stop this nonsense of going out and getting 30-year-old defensive linemen. Stop it. Well, actually, don't stop. Never stop. Never, ever stop. Because then you will never stop being in these stupid situations. He, by the way, right now is an unbelievably attractive free agent because the Vikings are paying his entire salary. So he can probably go out and get a league minimum contract somewhere, and the Vikings still have to pay him a crap ton of money. So stupid. Levi Drake Rodriguez, by the way, 6'2", 300 pounds out of East Texas A&M in 2024, 7th-round pick. Had a 56 run defense grade and a 59 pass rush grade. Had 11 pressures and 2 sacks on 175 attempts. So 11 divided by 175, 6% pressure rate. 6%. That's dog crap. And that's as a somewhat smaller guy that just offers you nothing in run defense. So that's not great. Jalen Redmond, 2023 UDFA, originally from Carolina. He actually does show up a little bit more as a run defender at 291. Go figure. Again, just because they're 340 pounds doesn't mean they're a run defender. It's a technique thing. But he grades out in the 70s as a run defender. The pass rush is in the 60s. He had 35 pressures and 6 sacks on 370 attempts. So call it 9% pressure rate. So he is 27-ish, run defender at 291. Really not much else being offered on this defensive line whatsoever. All right, I didn't even see how late it was. Let's take our final break, and we got a little bit of Green Bay Packers stuff to discuss. So one thing I thought I would bring up, kind of random, but I thought it was interesting. Jonah Coleman, he is a running back out of Washington in the NFL draft. Currently consensus 85 overall. The Packers pick at pick 84 in the third round, so it lines up very well with where the Packers are picking in the third round. I mention this a couple reasons. Number one, obviously the Packers are in the market at this point for a running back, presumably anyways. And so it makes sense to be looking at different running backs. If we just take a quick peek here, he spent 2 years at Arizona. He had rushing grades of 87 and 93 while at Arizona. His final year at Arizona, 127 attempts, 863 yards, 6.8 yards per attempt, 5 touchdowns, 93 PFF grade, 5.09 yards after contact per attempt. He transfers to Washington, 1,000 yards, 5.5 yards per attempt, 10 touchdowns, 87 grade. Then his final year at Washington, 4 years in college, 2 at Washington, 758 yards, 4.8 per attempt, 15 touchdowns, 84 rushing grade. Why do I specifically mention this guy? Aside from, very successful college career, PFF grades through the roof and all that. I saw this little note here. If we assume the Packers have a type, and I think we know that they do, Brian Gutekunst has had a type for a while. He likes the big 220-pound-ish plus guys. But specifically, we have, if you want to know who he likes, look at who's on our team. Here's a little clip from Jonah Coleman.
We definitely think you got quick feet. You know what you want to do when you get the ball. You know what you want to do with it. And you talked about the physicality. You are one of them ones when it comes to pass pro, right? Who would you compare your game to at the NFL level?
I feel like I could compare my game to Josh Jacobs, just the physicality that he runs. He's a little bigger than me, but I feel like we move similar. We run similar. He picks up blitzes. He's able to catch the ball at the backfield as well.
Yeah, the way you guys drop your pads through people. It's very, very similar.
Hey, y'all hear that? Jonah Coleman make the great comp of himself, Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, he did the work for everyone you out there. So,
by the way, I want to see the rest of this quote here. I initially found this from an article here by Connor Rogers. And I talked about a lot of this article in the NFL Draft podcast. I kind of nitpicked a couple things or picked out a couple things because I was talking about sort of the top 5 and there was a lot of stuff in here. But this one stood out and I threw it in there for the Packers one for obvious reasons. But here is what he wrote. He said, as a draft analyst, pro player comparisons can take a while to really nail down. This doesn't happen often, but Washington's Jonah Coleman gave me one for himself that I will use the rest of the process. Josh Jacobs. Both are compact 220-pound runners that can run through defenders and help in the pass game. Thanks for the assist, Jonah. I mention that because apparently Connor Rogers, who's quite good at this stuff, he heard that and thought that's exactly right. It's not, because sometimes you hear like, oh, who do you look like or who do you play like or whatever, and they'll say something, but who freaking cares? It doesn't mean anything. You're not that. But Connor Rogers not only heard that, but he thought that's actually a very good comp, and he's going to use that from now on. Meaning, Jonah Coleman really does play like Josh Jacobs. And on that note, I thought we would do a little bit of a scouting breakdown here because I haven't added anyone to my list here in a little while. So why don't we do that as a sort of possible third-round option for the Green Bay Packers? By the way, if you're interested, link is in the description. You can subscribe to my my big board. It'll have all the Jonah Coleman stuff on there. So he was a 3-star recruit out of Stockton, California. Spent 2 solid seasons at Arizona, as mentioned. He was honorable mention All Pac-12 as a sophomore in 2023, and then transfers to Washington, immediately takes over, led Washington to 1,053 yards, 10 touchdowns, earned third-team All-Big Ten honors, became the first UW back since 1976 to hit 100-plus yards in his debut. In 2025, he led the team with all the yards and touchdowns that we already talked about. despite missing time with an injury, becoming team captain, earning honorable mention All Big Ten again, racking up academic honors, including first team academic All-American. I guess he followed Coach Jed Fish to Washington, which is the part of the reason for the transfer, immediately became the feature back. He was the first in a family of 9 children to attend college. He maintained a 3.91 GPA, academic All-American honors, and was named a team captain in 2025 while also winning community service awards. Coleman led the nation in rushing touchdowns in 2025 and tied a modern UW record with 5 rushing touchdowns in 1 game versus UC Davis. His compact frame and mentality make him near impossible to bring down in short yardage. Some of his strengths: elite contact balance and power, vision and zone rushing instincts, one of the cleanest zone runners in the class with outstanding spatial awareness. Kind of reminds me of Josh Jacobs, to be honest. 3-down versatility and pass protection, which is going to be critical for all teams, but the Packers in particular, they don't want you out there if they don't trust you as a blocker, and they also don't want you if you're not a receiver. Ball security and mentality, only 1 fumble in 4 college seasons on hundreds of touches. That's pretty incredible. Short area quickness and subtle elusiveness. Weaknesses listed as limited top-end speed. Again, Josh Jacobs. He's a grinder, not a home run hitter. Average burst through the hole, not a classic tackle breaker. Projected as a solid mid to late 3rd round pick with legitimate 3-down starter upside in the right scheme. Best fit in a zone-heavy or gap scheme where he can be a David Montgomery-style workhorse who also catches and protects. As far as the injury is concerned, suffered a knee injury versus Wisconsin in November 2025 that limited him to 5 carries in that game, kept him questionable the following week. He missed 1 game total but returned without further issue and finished the season. No surgeries or major missed time in 4 college seasons. Also no off-the-field red flags, none of that kind of stuff. And then just some minor news here. The Green Bay Packers did re-sign Chris Brooks. He was set to be a restricted free agent next week. The interesting part about it, they apparently signed him, and this actually kind of speaks to the, doesn't really matter. They signed him to a 2-year, $4.85 million deal. And actually, when I saw that, I thought, well, that's kind of surprised that they actually gave him a legitimate contract. Well, the 2-year, $4.85 million deal is a $2.42 million average. As a restricted free agent, the Packers could have used a tender on him. However, the lowest tender would have cost them $3.52 million for 1 year. So they thought, well, screw that. Let's pay him $2.42 for $2 million, or for 2 years. So they get him for 2 years at a cheaper deal. In fact, they're paying him for 2 years just a little bit more than they would have for 1 year if they had just tendered him. So it ends up working out quite well. It does kind of speak to the Emmanuel Wilson thing. I said they could probably bring him back. The fact that was on the table as an option for Emmanuel Wilson that I didn't really consider makes it probably less likely that he's coming back. But it's possible Emmanuel Wilson and his camp just said, no, we're not doing that. And so there's still going to be the option of him saying, I want a bunch of money, and nobody says yes, and then he comes back. But, I think we all kind of expect he's probably gone. It's also worth noting Brooks did play a lot of special teams, and so he is going to be a big part of our special teams and probably a big part of the reason why they felt he needed to come back, maybe over and above Marshawn Lloyd. Or I'm sorry, I was just reading Marshawn Lloyd is why I said that, above and beyond Emmanuel Wilson. And then the only other thing here, I was going to talk about the special teams thing, but we'll save that maybe for tomorrow. I'm running out of gas here, and it's after 10 o'clock. I got to get out of here. Rashawn Gary posted on Instagram a Packers sweatshirt laying on the ground. Now, these things are so stupid. However, players do this stuff when it means something. So I don't know. It's probably just nothing, and we're staring at a freaking nasty, sweaty sweatshirt on the ground, and it doesn't mean anything. And we're all idiots for pretending that it does. On the flip side, it might mean something which doesn't help us at all other than to say, what the heck does that mean? Which is hilarious to me that we're all staring at a sweatshirt going, what does it mean? Now, it's worthwhile I don't know how, I'm not on Instagram. I don't know. I'm not a 14-year-old girl, so I don't go on Instagram. No offense to the grown men on Instagram. Actually, you know what? I do mean offense if you're a grown man on Instagram. Anyways, like Rashawn Gary, apparently. If he posts regularly, it's probably, if he posts not at all or not very often, it is worth noting we are in that window where, as I said, the Packers are aggressively negotiating with certain people. Rashawn Gary is going to be one of them. They're going to be trying to work things out with Rashawn Gary in some kind of capacity. And so if this is signaling, it could very easily go in either direction. Number one, he's taking a picture of something that says Packers, right? Yeah, Packers. Why? Because he's staying. Yay, Packers. On the other hand, the sweatshirt is off and on the ground. I feel so stupid even saying these things out loud, but I'm just thinking through them. Most likely, it means nothing. If it means something, it's either taking a picture of Packers or it's taking a picture of him taking his Packers sweatshirt off. You know what I mean? Like it's off now. He's not a Packer anymore. I don't know. If there's nothing by tomorrow, probably doesn't mean anything. We'll see. Either way, we're going to be getting Rashawn Gary news relatively soon here because we're going to have to. Just reading the comments here, trying to figure out what it means. Is he invisible? Certainly possible. It's a sweaty sweatshirt. It means he's working hard. That could be. Maybe he's using it as a place to wipe his feet. That would be unfortunate. I read it as the Packers have crossed the line because it is laying across a line. That's super deep. Airing out his laundry. That's clever. Package delivered. That's a thought. A player who takes off half of his plays. It's a stretch, but I get it. Crossed the finish line with Green Bay. Another one says finish line. I don't know. A lot of people just saying he's gone. It's always funny, too, when people see these nothing pictures and they're like, yep, see, he's gone. Like, see, what do you mean, see? Why are you saying see? See what? What do you see? Anyways, it's always fun. People get so mad about this stuff. I get mad when people try to, like, break news or, like, there actually is something big, but they're not going to say it. Like, bro, tell me. Stuff like this, I think it's funny. All right, I'm out of here. I'm getting the announcements. Kids, brush teeth, come upstairs, put kids to bed, all that stuff. So I officially have crossed the finish line. So y'all have a good rest of your night. Or no, day. Have a good day. And I'll talk to you tonight. Bye.